Most police stations are covered in cameras to catch your every word and movement, but sometimes even the smartest of criminals completely forget this, leading to some chilling moments. This is exactly what happened to Chris Watts, a husband and father of two accused of murdering his entire family, whose entire defense fell apart after forgetting he was on camera. Chris had bought a house with his new wife in 2013 and had 2 kids with her there. But in August of 2018, Chris decided that he wanted to fully pursue his relationship with another female, Nicole, and as such separate from his whole family. The couple argued for weeks, but it all came to a climax in an argument on August 13th, 2018. An argument that would end with Shannon laying strangled in a shallow grave in their garden, and his daughters smothered and trapped in oil drums in an attempt to hide the bodies. Chillingly, Chris went about the rest of his day as if nothing had happened, but it wouldn't take long for his family to be reported missing by a friend, and presumed dead. Chris made an outward attempt to seem shocked and in denial, and even gave multiple interviews to news channels where he begged for his family to come home.
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here.
However, after failing a simple lie detector test in police custody, an 8-hour-long interrogation began. Chris originally maintained his innocence, stressing he still had no idea where they could be. But after hours of passing interviews and more polygraph tests, he asked to speak to his father, where he would finally make a mistake.
She heard him? Yeah. And, well, no, I heard like a little commotion upstairs, but I didn't think anything of it. And then we went back upstairs and she was dead. I could see, like, she was about choking her throat. Did she kill him? Terribly. She choked both of them with that. I freaked out and she had me. Buried and choking, and then there's babies. That's what I feel horror about. They're a freaking oil tank. Please God, it makes me.
Chris had completely forgotten that he was being filmed, and assumed that just because the detectives weren't in the room, nobody could hear him, and he was free to say whatever he wanted. But of course, this wasn't the case. And just seconds after confessing to his dad, the detectives returned to the room and eventually arrested him. Months later, he was sentenced to 5 consecutive life sentences. But it's not usually a direct confession that the police find when criminals forget about the cameras. Often it's as simple as somebody exhibiting incriminating behavior, or in the case of Dawson McGee, not finding said behavior. Dawson had always been somewhat of a black sheep in his family. He was homeschooled as a child and never fit in with his siblings, often giving them a hard time and generally being unpleasant towards them. Dawson's strange behavior continued further into adulthood. He became fixated on Halloween masks and horror movies, and was often seen ominously walking around his house at night in full costume. Because of his behavior and demeanor, Dawson was still living with his mother in 2008, but this only made him worse. Eventually in his 20s, after he became extremely disrespectful to his mother, she told him it was time to move out. This, of course, enraged Dawson, and at around 4:30 p.m. on Halloween night, 2011, he attacked his mother in cold blood, stabbing her a total of 10 times across her neck and torso. Just half an hour later, Dawson's sister Caitlin called her, to no response. This concerned Caitlin, and the next day, Caitlin called the police. Just minutes later, after arriving and forcing entry into her room, Kathleen's lifeless body was found laying on her bed, and it wouldn't take long for them to find their main suspect, as the next day, Dawson was arrested wearing a jacket stained with his mother's blood. But it was his behavior in the interrogation room that was the most damning. Dawson had surmised that his strange habits and behaviors were possibly enough for him to claim insanity, as long as he just played it up a little bit to the officers. But this ended up being his biggest mistake.
I want to talk to you about what happened to your mom.
People call me and said something happened at home to Mom. They were very bad. What happened to my mom?
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
Wait, I'm supposed to have an attorney?
You want to ask for an attorney?
Yeah.
Okay.
Watch how as soon as he hears a detective enter the room, he quickly puts on a strange act of hand movements coupled with distant, stuttered speech without realizing that this instant switch was captured on cameras that were recording the entire time. This footage was enough for a jury to determine him as completely sane and sentence him to 15 years in prison. But while it's very amusing, it's uncommon for a criminal to completely forget that they're being filmed. So what happens when they do realize they're on camera? Upon entering the interrogation room, Russell Jones immediately noticed the camera that was filming every second of his time in there. Russell was being investigated for the murder of Aaron Fryer, a father of 3 who had been brutally beaten to death by a baseball bat in his sleep. At the time of the interrogation, police had already apprehended 2 other people for this murder, 15-year-old Ellen Fryer and her 19-year-old boyfriend George. But Russell was also present when George and Ellen were picked up, so he too was brought in for interrogation. The entire time he was in police custody, Russell was friendly with the officers, and while he was open about his disdain towards police generally, he was adamant that the few he was talking to were the good ones.
You seem like a nice guy. The guy that I was talking to seemed like a nice guy, so...
No Sprite?
Perfect.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Now all I need is a cigarette and I'll be happy.
He chatted with them politely enough for them to even fetch him food and drinks to keep him company throughout the interview. And on the way to the police station, he even opened up to the officers about his personal business endeavors.
I actually started my own protection business.
Did you?
Yeah.
What kind of protection?
I know it's kind of risky, but I work with people 20 and younger, legally considered a runaway kind of age.
So you provide protection for runaways and get them like a place to live?
Yeah.
But to think of a better term, most guilty people that's ever been filmed in a police interrogation. It's honestly hard for me to put this behavior into words, so take a look for yourself.
You're listening in on my conversations, aren't you? I don't care if you're fed or not. I can still twist your little mind. Don't piss me off. So, we can do this the nice way and we negotiate, or we can do it the hard way and I can release my bipolar. Let's make a deal. Do-do-do-do. 1, thanks for the food. 2, I see Ellie and Davin because they are both under my protection. 3, before you release Ellie to her parents, or parent, do a background check as well as a drug test. And if you find out that her mom is in fact doing drugs, you are to release her to me. But if you're one of those 2-timing donut-eating piece of crap that don't like rules, a high school bully with a badge, I'm sorry, buddy, but I eat high school bullies for breakfast.
But alongside these frankly hilarious and entertaining conversations with himself, Russell actually begins to give up information on the case without anybody else in the room.
Gavin and Ellie are to be released to me because the assault her father did the morning of the incident, defending a female. And I know everything that I'm saying is being recorded, and I'm doing it on purpose. It wasn't really self-defense so much as it was defending her.
It obviously didn't take much for police to convict him after this. However, due to the absurdity of his behavior in this footage, it took them a while to determine if Russell could legally be considered insane or not. However, it was eventually determined he would be sentenced to 18 to 15 years in prison, and his accomplices each taking 25 years as the main perpetrators of the crime.